بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Continue from today's Khutbatul Jum'ah concerning some of the ahkam about the Sujud and the Sajda. There's a lot to deal with. In our Sunday class, probably next week, inshallah, we'll deal with the Sajda to Sahu and the fiqh of the Sajda when you make a mistake in your Salat. When do you do those two Sajdas? When, how, and why? But for today, bi'idhnillah, we want to mention a few additional points, and that is from the virtues of the sajda and the importance of the sajda is that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam from his sunnah is that he used to read the Surah of As-Sajda on Friday. He would read it for the Salat of al-Fajr. Surah to Sajda and Surah al-Insan. As for the reading and recitation of Surah to Sajda and Surah al-Mulk every night, this is not authentic. If a person wants to do that to get the barakah of reading the Quran, then it's permissible, but the hadith in that regard is not authentic. It's not authentic at all. So he used to read Surah to Sajda and Surah al-Insan for Friday morning prayer. Concerning his mudawama on that, did he do that all the time? There are some scholars who said he did it all the time. And that's what should happen every single Friday. And there's an authentic narration concerning that. Al-Hafidh Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned that Al-Imam al-Tabarani brought a narration in which there is a tasrih, clear, that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, said that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam can yadim ala qira'atihima. He did it all the time, persistently and consistently. And that is the position of the Jamhur of the ulama. As we mentioned to you before, the Jamhur doesn't make something right, doesn't make something wrong, but it has its position. Because if the majority of the scholars are saying something in an issue that a person is finding difficulty, should I go with this or I go with this? He doesn't know. The Jamhur, the majority, said that kind of like helps to possibly tip the scales, but it is not a dalil qatir. As we mentioned before, there are many dalil on that. Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, was the jama'ah on the day of the people who apostated and they left al-Islam. He was the only one who took that position, rahimahullah ta'ala. And Imam Ahmed was the jama'ah when it came to the fitna of the khalqul Quran. When many of the scholars were saying the Quran is created. And one of the reasons they said that, they were afraid of getting punished. Everybody said what Imam Ahmed didn't say. So the Jamhur, it has a position. We have to be balanced and never say, just give me the kitab and the sunnah. And that's not knowledge right there. The majority of the scholars said something, we have to pay attention to that. The Malikiyah, and I'm not going through this to make confusion, but it's just so that we'll get some benefit. In the Maliki madhab, they were of the opinion that no, you shouldn't do it all the time. And that's because of a few reasons. The Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been authentically described as praying the Fajr prayer with different surahs, like Surah al-Zilzal. He read it in both rakat, in both of them. Sallallahu alaihi wa ala alihi wasallam. And he read other than that. But the Jamhur said Those are the other prayers for Fajr. As for Fajr on the day of Al-Jum'ah, these two surahs should be read all the time. But the Malikiya said no. They didn't think that that was a safe position so that the people wouldn't think that it's fard, wajib, to read these two surahs. And that is what appears to be the strongest statement, and Allah knows best. The next thing is the wisdom of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam reading these two surahs. So from what the scholar said is, if you look at these two surahs and you read Surah As-Sajdah, if you read it to see what's the subject matter, if you read Al-Insan, both of those surahs talk about Adam's creation in detail. And both of those surahs talk about what's going to happen Yawm al-Qiyamah, deeply, both of those surahs. And then the Nabi mentioned, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, خير يوم طلعت فيه الشمس يوم الجمعة فيه خلق آدم وفيه أدخل الجنة وفيه أخرج منها ولا تقوم يوم القيامة إلا في يوم الجمعة. The best day that the sun came up is on Friday. On Friday, Allah created Adam. On Friday, Allah put him in the Jannah. On Friday, Allah expelled him from the Jannah. Salawatullahi wassalamu alayhi. And Yawm al-Qiyamah is only going to happen on Friday. So since Friday is the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, those scholars said this is from the hikmah why the Prophet read these two surahs, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. From the importance of the information of the khutbah today, I want to mention this really important, is that we have mentioned how Iblis refused to make sajda to Adam after Allah commanded him to do so. But the Malaika, they made sajda to Adam. Two things concerning that. One of the ayahs of the Quran said about the Malaika making sajda and Iblis not making sajda, فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسِ كَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ. They all bowed down, the angels, but Iblis refused to bow down. He was from the jinn, and he disobeyed, and he made fisq. He didn't do what Allah told him to do. So some people believe that Jibril or Iblis was from the Malaika, and that is not authentic. That is a Christian Judaism type of thing, that Iblis was a fallen angel and he disobeyed Allah. Our aqidah, our theology is that the Malaika cannot disobey Allah. Our theology in the Quran and the Sunnah, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained to us that the Jann have been created from a smokeless fire. And this ayah said he was from the jinn. And he didn't take care of, he didn't listen to, he didn't obey, didn't follow the command of Allah. So for the revert brothers or anyone else, used to be a Christian, this fallen angel concept is not from our religion. Allah Ta'ala, for a hikmah that is with him, he had Iblis to be in the company of the jinn. A lot is said about that he was the chief of the jinn and so forth and so on. And because he's like Bani Adam, he has the ability to obey and not obey. When he was told, bow down to Adam, he said, no, I'm better than him. You created me from fire, you created him from hellfire. He had the ability to. All of that comes from narrations that the Prophet didn't talk about, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's deep kalam about that in the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, and other than that, is from those narrations that we mentioned already. Hadithu an Bani Israel. Wala haraj. You could tell the people what Bani Israel said in their book and this, no problem. But don't believe it, don't disbelieve it. So there's a lot of kalam about that. Iblis was a jinn. That's first thing. Second thing, and this is really important, is that when Allah Azza wa Jal commanded Iblis and the Malaika to bow down to Adam, that was the Sharia for those who were before us, not our Sharia. It was for the Sharia of that time, in the heavens, with the Malaika, with the jinn. as it relates to Adam. For us, we don't bow down to anyone. So anyone who's doing martial arts and you're going to start the competition off, you want to respect the sensei, you want to respect the teacher, they don't mean bowing down with anything other than respect. In our religion, we don't do that. Some companions came from Yemen, people that came to accept Islam. They asked the Nabi, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when we meet each other, he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the man said to him, should we grab each other and hold each other? He said, no. Should we bow down to each other? He said, no. He said, should we shake their hands? He said, yeah, and shaking hands is good. This is our religion. As for greeting people by bowing down, no matter who it is. As I mentioned during the Khutbah al-Jum'ah, in some African cultures, West Africa, for the woman to show respect to her husband, she'll bow down. The children will bow down. It's not permissible, not permissible. You can shake hands, you can hug people, and other than that, but you can't bow down. As for Adam, the malaika, the jinn, they were told to bow down to Adam, as we mentioned, because Allah created Adam with his own two hands. He said to Iblis, Ma mana'aka and tasjuda lima khalaqtu biyadayya. What stopped you, Iblis, from bowing down to the one I created with my own two hands? And both of Allah's hands are right hands. Iblis said, you created me from fire, you created him from dirt. I'm better than it. He said, you got to get out of here. So Allah created Adam with his own two hands, and that sajda to Adam was the sajda of respect that was allowed before us. Who else bowed to people? Who else bowed? Who else bowed in the Quran? Who? The family of Yusuf saw in the dream, and it happened by the end of the story, that Yusuf said, Inni ra'aytu ash-shamsa wal-qamar wa inni ra'aytu ash-shamsa wal-qamar wa ahada ashara kawkaban ra'aytuhum li sajidin. I saw the sun and the moon, and I saw 11 stars bowing down to me. That took place later on, where his mother, his father, and his 11 brothers all bowed down to Yusuf out of respect, not out of ibadah, out of respect. We don't do that right now. Not even with the Prophet is it permissible, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he sent his companion, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, to Yemen, he went there, he gave the people dawah, they were Christians and Jews, and he saw with his own eyes how the monks and the priests, the people respected them. And they used to take the monks and the priests as lords along with Allah. When they would meet them, they would bow down to him as respect. So when Mu'adh came back and he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he fell down and he made sajda. Rasulullah said, Mu'adh, what are you doing? He said, I saw them people over there. They did it to their ahbar and their ruhban. They did it. You deserve it more. You're the Nabi, Rasulullah. I haven't seen you in all this. He said, if we're going to order anybody to make sajda to somebody else, I'd have ordered the wife to make sajda to her husband. The wife can't bow down to her husband. You can't bow down to anyone. You work for a very, very, very rich person. You cannot bow down to anybody. We shake hands like that, but we don't bend our backs for anybody. And we gave a talk here as well. If you have to go to court and standing up for the judge and calling the judge your honor and calling them munafiq, sayyid. We talked about that. We talked about the fiqh of that, how you have to deal with that. In al-Islam, if you call a munafiq, a kafir, ya sayyid, oh master, and you raise him up like that, you have helped to destroy this religion. We don't do that. But we still respect people's position, their position, but not by bowing down to them. Another issue with sajda, ikhwani, and this is critical. There is no sajda on any rocks from anywhere in the world. So if you went to make Hajj, you went to make Umrah, you went to Arafah, you went to Muzdalifah, any place in the world, you don't bring a rock back and put the rock down, and by making sajda on that rock, your sajda goes up. So when you make sajda, you're closer to Allah. When you make sajda, Allah hears your dua already. But because you're on the rock of Karbala, your dua, that's not from our religion. If you ever are in a masjid and people start throwing rocks down, and that happened to me before, we got ready to pray, and I didn't know what was going on, and they started throwing rocks down. And they all made sajda on the rocks. Go the other way. You can't pray in that kind of prayer. Those kind of rocks and that action, a lot of times it had shirk and kufr, and it's not from our religion. We don't pray on any rocks, karba, or anything other than that. Has nothing to do with the price of peanuts in the deen. The next issue, Ikhwani, is about the sajda to shukr, the sajda of a shukr. The sajda of a shukr is the sajda, and this is the one we were focusing upon today. Everybody here has been blessed with a lot of good, a lot of positives. Along with our issues, our struggles, our problems, we all have a lot to be grateful for, a lot to be thankful for. And the sajda in that should be a part of the repertoire of the Muslim, especially in big issues, like having babies, like getting married, like the family that you're trying to marry, they agree to accept you. And you become happy. You're over the moon. They agree to accept you. You didn't even get married yet. But you make sajda shukr to Allah for opening up that way for you. You got a job. You went to university. You passed the test. You passed your exam, driving the car. Haddith, wala haraj. So many things. But that doesn't prevent you from making sajda shukr as well from smaller things like the companions used to do. They would make salatul istikhara for small things like, should I buy these shoestrings or should I buy those strings for my sandals? They would make istikhara. Where is the khayr in these issues? So something very important. The companions, may Allah be pleased with them, they used to make sajda to shukr whenever a problem or misfortune would happen to imams of kufr and shirk and innovation. They would make sajda to shukr. So during the khilafah of Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, the man came and he claimed that he was a Nabi and a Rasul, and his name was Musaylama al-Kadhab. He was a liar. He said revelation came to him. He's a Rasul after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said that revelation, he was tripping, he was saying some crazy things. When he fell, misfortune got on him and he died, Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, made sajda to shukr that man died. He's an imam of kufr. Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet told him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, told the companions about a man. He was called Vu al-Thadayya. It was a man who had like a growth on his body that looked like, on his hand, it looked like, some extra stuff. And the Nabi told him, he's from the Khawarij, and you're going to kill him. Whoever kills him, whoever kills that man, he gets this reward and that reward. Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, and the people with him, they fought him. He told the people, everybody look for this man. And they started looking for the man and turning the bodies over here and there. And then they found that man. They said, here he is. And they had that thing. Ali was on his horse. Radiyallahu anhu. He got off that horse and he made sajda to shukr. But I have to say this. During these times, this one is considered an innovator, and this one is considered an innovator, and that one is considered an innovator. And as a result of that, I'm going to make sajda to shukr about this individual. And in fact, he's not even an innovator. He's not even an innovator. He's just part of fitness and stuff like that. I would highly recommend and advise brothers to avoid that stuff. Avoid what we see with the people who are making tabdi of individuals. And if that's what your ijtihad has taken you to that, he's not an imam of kufr and shirk. He's not even an innovator like that to most people. So every time one of this brother, Zayd's a new Muslim, I tell all of you he's an innovator, and the guy over is an innovator, and just regular people. And then when that man dies, I say, I get up in front of you, make sajda to shukr. I say that the people have lost their minds these days. This is not what the scholars of the Sunnah during our time were upon. This is a new age development with the people right now. That some people can see non-Muslims and not feel anything about non-Muslims, but when they see someone from Jamaat al-Tabligh, it's a hatred that enrages people. No, people are our brothers, and those people, not that we support what they're doing the way that they're doing, but those are Muslims, man. What are you talking about? And when you see the non-Muslim, it can even be a Yehudi. You don't even feel that kind of way. Not the right way. So sajda to shukr is a sajda of thankfulness. Anytime Allah blesses an individual with something, big or small, there's reward in the sajda. Concerning the sajda of the tilawa, the sajda of reading the Quran, there are a few issues from the fiqh of that. There's a lot of kalam. The majority of the scholars or the jumhur of the ulama of Islam, they are of the opinion that if you read the Quran or you heard the Quran being read and you want to make sajda at tilawa, then all of the conditions of salat have to be with you. So if you're reading the Quran or you read or you heard the Quran and an ayat of sajda came, you have to face the qibla. You have to be in wudu. You have to have the sitr of your aura has to be covered, and on and on and on. That's the position of the majority of the scholars, the jumhur. They're of that opinion. Everything that you have to do in the prayer has to be present if you're going to make this sajda of at-tilawa. But that doesn't seem to be the strongest and the correct position because, as we mentioned, the incident with the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the incident in Surah An-Najm, where the mushrikeen made sajda, that narration is inside Bukhari. The mushrikeen made sajda. They're not even believers. A condition for salah is you got to be a Muslim. No salah for disbelievers. If a disbeliever came and he got between the ranks, we're going to say, get out of the ranks, man. You can't stay in our ranks. You have to go back there because you'll be breaking the ring. Even if you wanted to pray. Ali ibn Abi Talib was in jihad, fighting. He was in jihad, fighting the people. When he got off his horse, he made sajda. He was in jihad. You think he was in wudu? So the people say, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But is it conceivable? The man is in jihad and he gets off of his horse and he makes sajda at that time. So it's an issue of ikhtilaf, but it appears. Now, definitely is better if you have wudu. It's better that you make the qibla, you face the qibla. But the sajda of a tilawa is not salat. It's not salat. You don't read the Quran, you don't do this, you don't do that. Also, the issue of saying Allahu Akbar. Some of the scholars say you should say Allahu Akbar and you go down. And when you come up, you say Allahu Akbar. There's no dalil for that, but that's the ijtihad of the scholars of al-Islam. The sajda of a tilawa is the sunnah. If you don't do it, it's not wajib. If you do it, you're not sinning. It's not wajib. So for the Fajr prayer, for the Jummah prayer, if you read it and you make sajda, fabihi wa ni'mah. If you don't, fabihi wa ni'mah. The Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did that. And also Umar did it from the minbar. He did it from the minbar. This is really important. It's really important. Umar was on the minbar and he was giving the khutbah, and doing the khutbah, he mentioned some ayat, an ayat of sajda in it. And after reading that ayat for a dalil, he came off of that minbar, came to the side, and he made sajda. And all of the people followed him and made sajda because of the hadith. The imam has been made to be followed. Everybody made sajda. And then the very next week, Umar was on the minbar, may Allah be pleased with him. He was giving the talk, and then he read an ayat of sajda. And the people started getting ready to make sajda. He read that ayat, and he didn't get off the minbar. He didn't get off. And he explained to them that making the sajda is when the imam does it. So if the imam got off that minbar, then if you're in the audience, you should make sajda. If the person is reading the Quran, if he didn't make sajda, you can make sajda. But if he makes it, if he didn't do it, you can do it. But if he did it, even more so, you should do it and following the person. And Allah knows best. The next thing, Ikhwani Fillahi, is now we're going to stop there. Because the boss with the hot